What's up, everyone, and welcome back to HBCU Game Day. We are here coming off of an exciting week one, and we are ready to preview everything week two. I am Symone Stanley from the ATL Studios. We are joined by Wilton Jackson. Wilton, how are you feeling?
I'm doing good, Symone. Glad to be here for another week.
We got to start with Jackson State versus Southern. This game is going to show a lot about both teams, and it's going to show a lot about both quarterbacks. We're going to get into it, but what are you looking out for the most in this matchup?
Now, Symone, I got to be honest with you. Before I even get to the X's and O's, the football game itself, we have to talk about the band competition. I mean, you can't talk about Jackson State and Southern without talking about the Boombox Classic, the Human Jukebox, the Sunny Boom of the South. I mean, that's a game before the game. Like, whether if it's the stands, the halftime show, the fifth quarter, I mean, it's going to be obviously spectacular. And, you know, knowing the fans in Baton Rouge, if you've ever been to Baton Rouge, Scotlandville in particular, it's going to be a very raucous environment. I can say that for sure. But as far as like to the field in terms of football, as you mentioned, this is going to be a close game. Or it's going to be more so of an important game for Southern and Jackson State, mainly due to the fact of what you said in terms of the quarterbacks. Obviously, Jackson State had its issues last week. Jason Brown actually injured his hand during that game against FAMU. So it'll be interesting to see how Coach T.C. Taylor looks at who he's going to put at quarterback for Jackson State going into this game. You know, does he stick with Jason or does he go with Zy McDonald? Because Zy McDonald, when he got in the game, obviously, you know what he did, threw a touchdown pass and managed the team well. There's also a Southern team with a quarterback in Harold Blood. Obviously, we know what he can do. Didn't have the outing that he wanted to have last week against Alabama State, and kudos to Alabama State's defense. Those guys are real. I think most people knew that coming into the season. This is a Southern team that had about 4 or 5 turnovers last game. So that's something. Both teams, Southern and Jackson State, both had turnovers in their games. So it's going to be interesting to see which team's offense can thrive, number one. Number two, which team's offense can pick up third downs and convert on third down conversions, and essentially which team is going to, pretty much play a clean game, not having so many penalties. Both teams had penalties in that game. And so I think a lot of it just comes down to you talking about a rivalry game between Jackson State and Southern. Obviously, emotions are going to be high, but it really comes down to those elements of what I just mentioned and the quarterback play.
Quarterbacks. Let's talk about it, Wilton. We can't glaze over the quarterbacks. So week 0, MEAC SWAC Challenge, Jason Brown makes his debut. He's riding high. 369 yards, 4 passing touchdowns for Jason Brown. Offensive line looks sturdy. Now, of course, they were playing a South Carolina State team that wasn't as physical up front like FAMU was. FAMU was getting after Jason Brown. The Jackson State offensive line was crumbling, Wilton, and the Orange Blossom Classic. Then you have Zy McDonald, who comes in, scores the only touchdown for Jackson State, passes for 149 yards. Coach T.C. Taylor said in his weekly press conference that they were sticking with Jason Brown. Now, that's the PC answer from Coach T.C. Are you believing that?
If he said it in the press conference, which he did, then he's going to stick with Jason Brown. Again, but what we know is that every game, depending on the outcome of what happens during the game, you always have to make adjustments. So what we do know now is that if Brown doesn't play to his potential or he's not being the guy that Jackson State needs him to be, we know that Zy McDonald can come in and make plays because he did it on national television in front of millions against FAMU. And in terms of, when you look at Jason Brown's performance last week, like against South Carolina State, the pressure that he saw against FAMU, he didn't see that against South Carolina State like that. So a lot of it, you have to really give kudos to the fact of FAMU's defensive front is strong. And remember, we said right here on this show more than a week ago, and I said, like, these were some of the players that FAMU had that could pretty much bring or create some problems for Jackson State's offensive line and for Jason Brown. And so essentially that's what happened. But again, adjustments can be made. But like I said, if TC said that Jason Brown is going to be the starting quarterback, then you have to go into Saturday's game thinking that Jason Brown is going to be the guy until proven otherwise.
Now, that's what he said on Monday.
Yeah.
A lot can change between Monday and Saturday.
Exactly.
So we'll be on the lookout. One thing I am interested is the confidence for both quarterbacks. If you're Jason Brown, you're coming off that huge MEAC SWAC challenge. You're wearing the HBCU Game Day I'm Him belt. get your pictures taken. You get the MVP of the MEAC SWAC Challenge, and then you come out week 2 against a SWAC rival in FAMU, and it's struggle bus. It's a struggle town. And then Zai comes in and he's looking good, and now you have quarterback questions already at week 2. So I'm worried about the mentality of those two guys.
I think that TC coming into the season, no one knew until the day of who the quarterback was going to be. Obviously, it was Jason. But all throughout the summer, there's been question marks. Who's going to be Jackson State's quarterback? Will it be Zai McDonald? Will it be Jason? Jason gets to start. But I think that Jason now sees in comparison to what he didn't see against South Carolina State is that you're going to be faced with some immense pressure from some really good teams throughout the rest of this season. This is just another test on the schedule. We remember how I talked about when I said South Carolina State was a pretest. FAMU was the ACT. Well, now you're getting another team, and granted, Southern is in the SWAC West, but you're getting another quality opponent. This is a rematch of the SWAC championship game from a year ago. And let's not forget, this was also the same team that Jackson State beat, when all the festivities was going on with college game day and, everybody, talked about Dion and this and that. Well, this is a new day in time now. And so they have to come out ready to play on all cylinders.
Now let's talk about Southern, because Southern's defense kept them in that close game against Alabama State week 1. But again, the quarterback play was really shaky. Harold Blood getting the start. We both talked to him at the SWAC Media Day in July. He was a little shaky, less than 50% accuracy, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions as well. Alabama State forced 5 turnovers against the Southern University's offense. What are you thinking? They didn't score in the second half either. I meant to mention that. Cold right. In the second half.
Yeah, they didn't score. And I think a lot of that, you have to really give the respect and kudos to Alabama State's defense. And like I said, Alabama State's defense wasn't bad last year. They were legit last year. And this year, I feel like they're even more legit with the players they had returning and some of the players they brought into the program for this season. And I really look at that and say, Harold Blood, obviously phenomenal quarterback. We talked to him, like you said, at SWAC Media Day. He's not a man of many words. He pretty much answers your question, and gets to the point and says what he's going to do. And so I think that last week was just one of those weeks, obviously it's the first game of the season. Things change from the first game to the second game to the 4th and the 5th game. But he doesn't have much time to get those things fixed, those issues that he had, fixed coming into the rest of the season. And when you think about a coach like Dooley, he's going to make those adjustments. I don't see Blood throwing 2 interceptions this game against Jackson State. Now, do I feel like, I guess I'm going to put my prediction out there already. Do I think Southern is going to beat Jackson State? I don't. I think Jackson State gets this win against Southern, but I do think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it will be the matchup we saw during the regular season last year or what we saw in the SWAC championship game.
Week 2 is going to tell a lot. Like you said, Harold Blood coming in, getting his first start in the first game for Southern University, going up against a ferocious defense in Alabama State. And like you said, they were one of the teams that played that juggernaut of a Jackson State offense close last season, and their defense translating right over to this year. So that's a tough task for Harold Blood. Week 1, we'll see what Southern's looking like. Week 2, this is going to tell a lot. And again, for Jackson State, week 0, they had a weak opponent. Week 2, they face a top team in FAMU. So week 3, we're really going to see. It's a little too early to gauge what this Jackson State team is. And in the second half of that Florida A&M game, Jackson State started getting a lot of stops. Florida A&M's offense went cold in the 4th quarter. If it wasn't for that fumble and Jackson State got the ball, I really feel like Jackson State could have at least been within 1 score.
That fumble changed the outcome in that game a lot. In the latter part of that game. Before that previous touchdown, when they made it 28-10, you kind of felt like, well, if Jackson State doesn't score, they may be out of this game. They get the touchdown. And from the replay, depending on which version of the replay you look at, I don't think Mulligan fumbled that ball. That's just me, but I don't think he fumbled that ball. And if that play goes in reverse and Jackson State keeps the ball, 9 times out of 10, they get a touchdown on that drive. So we're talking now 28-17 with maybe 5 or so minutes left in the game?
Yeah, like 6 minutes left.
Yeah, so that's obviously water under the bridge now. But when you're talking about FAMU, a team that obviously wants to compete for a SWAC championship this year, when you look at the way that they, like you said, they didn't score in the second half, that doesn't bode well for you. That doesn't bode well for you at all. And obviously, Coach mentioned that in the press conference in terms of being better in the second half. Like, while granted, Jackson State's defense stepped it up, but if you're talking about you want to compete for the SWAC East Division and compete for a SWAC championship this year, you still have to continue to pour on points, because if it was not for their running game, and Jackson State actually had a lot more together in terms of their offensive production earlier in the second half, this could have been a different game.
All right, let's move on to some MEAC CAA action. We have the Aggie-Eagle Classic. So North Carolina Central University, your reigning Black college football national champions, will be taking on an old rival, an old foe in North Carolina A&T. This game will be played in Greensboro. It's going to be a home game for the Aggies after being at a neutral site last year, playing at the Carolina Panthers Stadium in the Dukes Mayo Classic. Last year, North Carolina Central won 28-13. North Carolina Central still flying high. They're 1-0 so far, taking down Winston-Salem State in a blowout. North Carolina A&T coming in this game 0-1 after dropping last week to University of Alabama Birmingham. And Wilton, I don't know if you saw, it was in the group chat. I don't know if you read the group chat, Slack chat, group chat. We'll call it a group chat for the purposes of the video. But North Carolina A&T posted earlier this week, hey, we're having tryouts. Anybody interested in joining the football team? Yeah. After week one, the rosters are supposed to be solidified.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a good sign going into a game where you're going to be playing against the national champs.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think about that, I look at this game, and before I just even get to the game, like, let's talk about the level of fans and fandom around this game between North Carolina Central and A&T. Like, literally, Symone, I feel like I can hear an Aggie pride in my ear right now.
Aggie pride?
Every time I run into a person from North Carolina A&T, that's the first thing I hear. I love what they have. I love the camaraderie between both schools. But in terms of what this game could look like, North Carolina A&T has some questions. They for sure have some questions at quarterback. You're talking about a team that has essentially two freshman quarterbacks, that played in their first game of the season, and then they have a sophomore quarterback in Zach Yeager, who saw some playing time as well. So first year head coach, two freshman quarterbacks in the mix, a sophomore, you kind of really don't know. And especially with a more established North Carolina Central team that, obviously just came off of a win, like you said, against Winston-Salem State. I'll take my chances on Central in this game. I do like North Carolina A&T's rushing attack. They have that Virginia Tech transfer and Kenji Christian, and their rushing attack is really, really strong. I'm just really worried about what they're going to do at quarterback. If they will be able to withstand either of the three quarterbacks will be able to withstand Central's defense in that game.
And when you have to talk about three quarterbacks,
you
have no quarterback. A wise man once said, if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's how you really have to look at it. And it's like, obviously, we know the coach Trey Oliver is, he's going to have his guys prepared for everything. But coming into a rival game against, like you said, the reigning HBCU champs, three different quarterbacks might not be the best way to try to go after a win.
So we've talked about three teams now with quarterback questions: Jackson State, Southern, North Carolina A&T. But unfortunately for the Aggies, one team that does not have any questions at quarterback is North Carolina Central University. Davius Richard, the best quarterback in HBCU football, one of the best quarterbacks in FCS football, a total triple threat, because we did see him catch a pass in the Celebration Bowl on that Philly special play. I have to put my money on North Carolina Central. It's North Carolina Central for me all year long until you prove me wrong, because, again, quarterback play in college football is so crucial. We saw in the Celebration Bowl how you have a quarterback that can go toe-to-toe with any other offense, with any defense. I don't care what anybody tells me about North Carolina Central's defense and will they be able to hold up. I know when Davius gets that ball, he's going to find a way to score. So it's North Carolina Central for me.
Absolutely. And do not forget the play of the Trail Mookie Collier. That stiff arm, I still get scared of that stiff arm sometimes. I'm like, man, but the way that he's able to impact that offense, it allows Davis Richard to really be able to do the things that he's able to do, which we know he can throw the ball. We've seen it. He can run the ball. He's had a strong impact in their rushing attack over the years. So it'll be interesting to see those two. And I really think the combination of those two and more will just be too much for A&T in that game. Although that game is in North Carolina A&T. And the last time it was played in North Carolina A&T won.
That was a different Aggie team, though, Wilton.
It was. I give you that. It was. But I had to point that out, though. Had to put it out there.
We're going to watch out for that nugget. Now, let's talk about some SWAC OVC action. We have the Southern Heritage Classic, UAPB versus Tennessee State University this year. Both teams coming in 0-1. UAPB fell to Tulsa last week, and Tennessee State played a gauntlet team, a top 10 team overall in Notre Dame. So you talked to Coach Eddie George before the season. You got a lot of insight on what he expects from Tennessee State this year. What are you expecting to see from this game?
I'm expecting a very physical game between Tennessee State and Arkansas Pine Bluff. You're talking about an Arkansas Pine Bluff team under first-year head coach Alonzo Hampton. And if you really watch that game, not like if you didn't look at the box score, because the box score is going to say something totally different. Obviously, they got beat by Tulsa. But if you watch that box score for a good portion of that first quarter in that first quarter of that game, they were going toe-to-toe with Tulsa. There were opportunities that they could have had potential points had they not turned the ball over in that game. So this is a Arkansas Pine Bluff. This is not an Arkansas Pine Bluff team that we've been accustomed to seeing more so within like the last year or 2 years. I think this is a much different team. Coach Hampton, obviously an Arkansas product, knows the players he's brought into this program, has a lot of great experience and some really physical players. One player to watch out for sure is their running back. Jonas Davis. He had a pretty solid game against Tulsa in FCS program. But I will say this, like you mentioned, having talked to Eddie George, having seen some of their players in their practice as well, they have some pretty physical players too, especially on the defensive side of the ball. This is a Tennessee State team in that first quarter against Notre Dame in Notre Dame Stadium. It was a 7-0 game, So the biggest question mark that I still have with Tennessee State though is Draylon Ellis going to be the main quarterback? Because in that game, obviously Draylon Ellis plays, and then they have another quarterback by the name of Devion Bryant, who saw some time in that game as well. Draylon, former Austin PA transfer, we know what he can do. He's had some record-setting games at Tennessee State. I'm just interested to see as he continues to get into rhythm what this is going to look like for him going up against a UAPB team. Also, we have to mention this too. This is a different Southern Heritage class. This is not, Tennessee State, Jackson State. It's a new opponent. So I think that things could bode well, more so, I believe, for Tennessee State in this game on Saturday.
You talked about Jonas Davis. He had 89 yards rushing last week against Tulsa, and that's also credit to UAPB's offensive line. We know that they're known for their offensive line, and one of their coaches told me at Media Day, they're O-line university. They had Teron Armstead, who went on to the NFL and has a Hall of Fame trajectory career as an offensive tackle. Mark Evans is now with the Saints, having played for UAPB last year. So one thing we know about Arkansas Pine Bluff, they're going to have a sturdy offensive line, and that showed with the run game last week against Tulsa with Jonas Davis. So Tennessee State, that's going to be something that they're going to have to look out for.
Absolutely. And then when I want to mention this too, this Tennessee State team, but specifically on the defensive side of the ball, they have some dogs. Like you have a guy, linebacker, James Green. He has another brother on the team, Josh Green. But James Green, this is his 7th year playing college football. 7th. Hold on. 7th year. 7th.
Red shirt year, COVID year. Where did the other year come from?
Yeah. So he had a medical red shirt, I want to say in his 2019 season. And so of course that on top of the COVID year, and he got another year of eligibility to play for this season.
Oh, so he a professional college football player.
Yeah. No, but he's all over the field every time he steps on the field. Josh Green, his brother's at safety, another great asset in their secondary, and then also you have Terrell Allen and Bryce Phillips in their defense. So this is going to be. I'm really interested to see how many points are scored in this game.
All right, so we'll be looking out for that point total. So lastly, we're going to look at an HBCU, non-HBCU matchup. We have Alcorn State University versus Stephen F. Austin. Alcorn 0-1 after dropping last week to Southern Mississippi. These two teams met last year. Alcorn just barely losing 31-27. What are you expecting from this one?
Symone, I was upset at the outcome of last year's game. And this is not because, I'm from Mississippi or anything like that. But Alcorn was winning that game 24-10 at halftime. They were in full control of that game. Full control. They were limited to a field goal in the second half. Like, it was like a total disconnect. Stephen F. Austin, literally turned things on offensively and got going. I do think that this time around, I hope to not see a same repeat of that from last year. I can't really tell you how I really gauge this one. Part of me wants to give Stephen F. Austin the edge in this game, but I think I give them that edge more so due to the fact that, again, we talk about quarterbacks and really trying to see how things are going to pan out. This is an Alcorn team. Obviously, they have a quarterback in Aaron Allen who got the start against Southern Miss last week. He also had the start against Stephen F. Austin last year when they played. But I think the biggest key for Alcorn in terms of offensively to do well and excel in this game is going to be the impact of their running game. So it's no secret. Jarvion Howard, the dude is a dog. He is a complete dog. Running between the tackles, running along the edge. He's what you consider the true impact player. And for Alcorn to win this game, he's going to have to make it easier on his quarterback. He's going to have at least probably a 100-yard game against Stephen F. Austin's defense so that a quarterback like Aaron Allen is not forced to make many passes where the offense has to rely solely on him. If Howard can get going, and of course some other running backs that Alcorn has in their stable, I think I like Alcorn's chances. If not, this is probably going to go towards Stephen F. Austin.
Jarvion Howard, like you say, is a dog. We talked to him at Media Day, the SWAC Media Day. He was also the best dressed, according to HBCUGameday, at the 2023 SWAC Media Day. So if y'all haven't checked that out, go check it out. He dresses to impress. Coach Prime said, you look good, you feel good, you play good. So we know he dressing to impress. He look good. He feeling good. They gonna need him to play good on Saturday. But he's told me at Media Day, he said, Alcorn fans, be at every game. He said, you don't want to miss us this season. He said, we are must-see TV like the Barbie movie. He said, like the Barbie movie was a blockbuster and everybody want to see it, Alcorn State is a blockbuster. Everybody want to see it. So Jarvion, the Barbie movie was a hit. We're going to need to see a hit on Saturday.
No, he's on the clock. With the words like that, he's on the clock, and he's going to have to perform. And obviously, we know he will. He didn't have the biggest game that he wanted to last week against, an FCS opponent in Southern Miss. But I look for him to bounce back this week against Stephen F. Austin's defense.
That should be a good one, especially like you said, that offensive meltdown last season. They're going to be fired up, ready to go to get back. Is this game at home for Alcorn or?
No, this game is at Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah. Alcorn fans, he still said be there, so, make that trip.
Gotta make the trip. Have to.
Well, week 2, Wilton, is going to show a lot. We're going to have a lot to talk about week 3 because week 2, like we said, is going to reveal a lot. The contenders from the pretenders. So make sure y'all have your notification bells on. Make sure you guys are here every week on HBCU Game Day to hear our flashbacks and our previews for next week. Y'all, make sure you like this video, comment, and subscribe. For Wilton Jackson, I am Symone Stanley from the HBCU Game Day studios. See you guys next time.